All right, I think we're live. If anyone in the chat room can hear me, just push 1. All right, got a confirmation. Thank you for the confirmation. Welcome back to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 767, Space and Technology. Please hit the like button as you come in, share the video if possible, and hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust. There'll be a document in the description beneath the video for you to follow along with and for you to reference. And if you want to get on the panel, there'll be a link dropped in the chat. Just make sure you update your Zoom client before joining because you won't be able to join with an outdated client. Let me prepare the docket and then we'll get started. Seeking my creator, what's going on? Ronan Unsung, what's going on? AO, what's going on? All right, let's get to the first item on the docket. Let me know if you can see the screen. Actually, let me put the link in the chat because I think that's more. It'd be easier for some people to get on. All right, let's get started real quick. All right, this is from CW33.com. This was sent in by Jay Shine. Shout out to Jay Shine for sending this. Have it your way. McDonald's first fully automated restaurant with no human contact in Fort Worth. Electric cars, remote work, and even electric homes are all an example of how technology is transforming the world. McDonald's has now taken the initiative to make the lives of their customers easier and more convenient by introducing technology-driven solutions. The business is opened its first fully functional base technology restaurant, making it possible for North Texas residents to access their meals without having to interact with a person, only with a robot. Several videos have circulated on social media showing the restaurant without any seating or dining areas, indicating the restaurant is just a grab-and-go establishment. MKV Enterprises franchisee owner Keith Vanek and general manager Roseman Jusab are the one responsible for the restaurant's new concept. McDonald's website wrote that when Roseman was entering her 8th year at the Hazard location, Keith had approached her about the idea to manage a McDonald's test restaurant just outside of Fort Worth, Texas. Roseman is on the ball 24/7. I knew that if anyone could represent the brand, it was her. She cares about not only the company, but family. She is always looking to learn something new, Vanek said. You can order McDonald's.com. You can order at McDonald's.com or visit location in Fort Worth, Texas. So, I mean, this was bound to happen. I think I think restaurant companies, food and beverage organizations, I think they're looking at ways of really streamlining their processes in regards to this post-pandemic situation, primarily because the pandemic changed a whole lot of things, social distancing, mask wearing and things of that nature. I think that what that did, it accelerated the necessity for automation in these areas. And we kind of covered this stuff for the last few years, that this was coming down the pipe at some point. Now, this isn't to say that one is better over the other. I think that big restaurant franchisees and the food and beverage industry, they just want to be at that bleeding edge when it comes to taking advantage of automation and technology itself. And so it's not uncommon that, robots were going to start taking over some of these menial tasks that everybody was, accustomed to doing, putting meat on a piece of bread and then putting the condiments on it and then putting it inside of a microwave and, shipping it off to the customer. That's kind of a repetitive task that anybody can do if they were trained. And when it comes down to, robots and cobots, it was inevitable that you can actually train a robot at that level, okay? This was bound to happen. Now, what's going to happen to their revenue? I don't know. I can't see that McDonald's is going to be able to sustain the majority of their restaurants like this, because people like to come to a McDonald's now because they like to sit down, get out of the hot weather, cool off and under air conditioning, stuff like that. I don't know how much this is going to impact their bottom line. I think that they want to be at the bleeding edge for all intents and purposes. How are you doing, Shaw Willie? And so what does this mean to mom and pop shops? I don't think it impacts them all that much. I think it's going to be the human versus machine at this point. And I'm saying mom and pop shops that have, family run businesses where, they're putting together tacos or whatever it is from a food truck perspective. People want that experience of interacting with humans if they can. The idea of interacting with robots and cobots, artificial intelligence, we know from customer support and things of that nature that people don't really like engaging robots all that much. If they'll avoid it as much as possible if necessary. But when it comes to family-run businesses and restaurants and things of that nature, they still want that human-to-human experience. And I don't know how far they can go with this across the board. I think this makes sense in the airport where you have not the necessity to sit down and eat, but to eat and go because you got to go catch a flight or you're departing or whatever it is. I think that makes a lot of sense. But I also think from a brick and mortar standpoint, this can change a lot of things. So. Yeah, so that's my take on it. Feel free to engage if you disagree, but I do see that the non-human contact aspect as being really critical during the pandemic, but not so much after the pandemic. Let me move on to the next item on the docket. All right, next item on the docket is from bizjournals.com. Technology Innovation Tracker, KiwiBot secures $10 million to grow fleet of delivery robots. Terran Orbital gets $2.4 billion contract. This is a photo of the bot itself. This is going to be interesting. Oh man, I didn't log in. Sorry about this. Let me pause it for a second. I'm sorry, my Microsoft OneNote just crashed on me for whatever reason. Very, very, very weird. Let me share my screen to get to the next item on the docket. All right, next item on the docket is from Axios.com. Denver's e-bike rebate program, a savvy investment, new study shows. Denver's e-bike incentive program is not only proving change, new research shows. Why it matters. Denver's eco-friendly experiment is becoming a model for other cities across the country as more communities adopt initiatives aimed at researching net zero emissions. The program, which launched in 2022, thanks to a voter-approved sales tax hike, resulted in 4,734 rebates last year. Income-qualified residents are eligible for up to $1,400. The standard rebate for all residents is $300. Driver the News, a new white paper from Ride Report, a micromobility-focused tech company, shows e-bikes have slashed gas vehicle trips and proven to be a cost-effective way to get around the city. Ride Report partnered with the city to track rebate recipients who voluntarily downloaded the company's app. CEO Michael Schwartz tells Axios Denver. By the numbers, last year, the roughly 100 riders tracked by Ride Report rode an average of 26 miles per week, replacing 3.4 car round trips in the vehicle. 71% said they used their cars less after purchasing an e-bike. 90% were riding weekly, and 65% were on the bikes daily. The program was estimated to have cut 2,040 metric tons of carbon dioxide in 2022 and saved nearly $1 million in avoided fuel and electricity costs, according to the Rocky Mountain Institute, an environmental nonprofit. Of note, income qualified residents or people making less than 80% of the city's median area income rode their e-bikes nearly 50% more than rebate recipients per the white paper. Of the $4.7 million the city allocated for the program last year, 67% of that funding went to income qualified residents. Yes, but that figure slightly inflates the impact of the spending, since only 49% of rebates redeemed last year were claimed by low-income residents, according to the city figure. What they are saying, with the mile-high city leading the way, some industry experts are predicting public investments in e-bike programs and other low-carbon transportation will skyrocket this year. Quote, the success of the Denver rebate program and its clear impact on reducing transportation emissions suggests that policymakers need to take e-bikes much more seriously as a climate action tool. Ben Holland, a spokesperson for the Rocky Mountain Institute, said in a statement. What's next? Denver's next round of e-bike rebates go live 11 a.m. March 28th. We've talked about this for quite some time, okay? Complex is heavily invested into the micro transportation sector. And what we're talking about here is social impact, the ability to save the environment by also making money, okay? This is a very circular sort of ecosystem. We want to reduce pollution, so we want to take cars off of the road. We also want to get people onto bikes, and so we make an incentive for people purchasing bikes in the low-income area. Those people who purchase those bikes make less car trips. Those less car trips contribute to less pollution. The less pollution contributes to a better and healthier environment. Everybody wins. Micromobility is here to stay. There is no going back to pre-2021 or pre-pandemic sort of cultures of before. Universal basic mobility, UBM, UBI, universal basic income, all of this stuff is starting to play out now. I can't, stress enough that we've been talking about this for years. A lot of people laughed at us. Who's laughing now? What's going on, Complex Design? I think Complex may be having some issues here. Yeah, I think Complex may be having some issues. But we've been talking about this for years, that this sector was going to take off at some point, and that more cities need to be involved in the ecosystem of making mobility more accessible for people in certain demographics, and those happen to be Black, specifically because most Black people who don't have a vehicle, they have to walk, and if they're not walking, they have to catch a bus. You know, here in Boston, Massachusetts, the mayor allocated $8 million for free transportation and several bus routes that allow for Black or low-income people in that area to have access to the bus so that they can get around across the city in a more meaningful and impactful way. Now people can go to work without actually having to shell out $100 for a bus pass or a train pass or something like that. You can usually get around the city by foot, but having access to a frequently traveling bus in your area makes a heck of a lot of sense if it's free. And if you have access to e-bikes and so on and so forth, that also makes a lot of sense because an e-bike can take you really far, further than what you would on a pedal bike. I see a variety of these sort of e-bikes. I'm sorry, my mic dropped out there for a second. I'm sorry about that. Had to take a call real quick. Yeah. So we've talked about this for years. I know Complex is trying to get in. I don't know what's going on. I know the link is in the chat. If you're trying to get on and you don't have an updated Zoom client, make sure your Zoom client is up to date, or else it's going to give you some serious issues. So what I'm going to do is move on to the next item on the docket. All right, next item on the docket is from Electrek. Rome moves headquarters to larger facility in Africa capable of producing 50,000 electric motorcycles per year. That's a lot of motorcycles. Let's really dig into this and figure out how they're able to go about this. electric technology company Rome continues to find success in its native East Africa, and is now expanding its production footprint to a new larger facility that's over 100,000 square feet in size. In the coming years, Rome intends to bolster its air electric motorcycle production to fill the new facility capacity of 50,000 units per year. I don't know who wrote that. Rome was founded in 2017 under its original moniker, Opibus. Although the company saw a rebranding to Rome in April 2022, although Rome's origin has Swedish roots, it has always been headquartered in Kenya, where it develops, designs, and manufactures electric motorcycles and buses to help transition the African continent towards a future of more sustainable transportation. Last summer, Rome officially launched its air electric motorcycle, complete with 2 swappable battery packs that combine for 180 kilometer of all-electric range, 112 miles in Western world. The frame of the Rome Air was engineered to handle both the urban and rural terrains of Africa and provides a storage compartment where a traditional fuel tank would be. The result is an electric motorcycle this is so poorly written. I'm sorry. I don't know who wrote this thing. That it offers class-leading carrying capacity, range, and top speed that is helping Rome in its goal of easing mass adoption of zero emission transport across Africa. With partners like Uber already on board to deploy its electric motorcycles in East Africa, Rome has expanded to keep up with the demand and improve production efficiencies. Rome shared details of its new 10,000 square meter facility in Nairobi, Kenya earlier today. The relocation is called Rome Park and will now become home to the company's East African headquarters and development battery labs. In addition to its air electric motorcycle production, the new footprint, which Rome describes as double the size of the International Space Station, has the capabilities for an annual production capacity of 50,000 airs per year. Rome is not at that output level yet, but intends to reach it in a couple of years, all while remaining a carbon neutral assembly facility. So there's a high demand right now in Africa for micro transportation, electric vehicles, and things of that nature, because what they did a few years ago, they tested the air quality in Africa, and what they found was a lot of your pollution was coming from these motorcycles, okay? These sort of cheap 125cc, 150cc motorcycles that, just put out a lot of smog. And, a lot of the cars, the passenger cars are putting out smog, but in particular, these gas-based motorcycles were putting out a lot of smog. And you could smell it for minutes at a time when they pass by, and hundreds of them pass by. We covered this last month or so. East Africa has something like 28 million gas-based motorcycles, okay, of all sort of, petrol ranges. And so when you have that many motorcycles creating that much pollution, it's easy for you to actually convert these motorcycles, these gas-based motorcycles, to electric, and immediately it cleans up the environment. As I was saying in the last segment, these are easy victories that you can get, and create an ecosystem around. It impacts the environmental aspect of the SDG, the Sustainable Development Goals that the United Nations has pledged last year. It offers, modern technology, if not next generation technology, for places that have been digitally impoverished, for the, if I can say that, and it creates a revenue stream from a business aspect, because it allows the cultivation of new battery technology, as well as charging facilities and other form of civil infrastructure. This makes sense all the way around the board, as I said in the last segment. We got complex design on the panel as well.
Hey, Mike, I finally made my way in. I don't know what the hell was going on with Zoom. I was trying to get in for like the last.
Yeah, you can't join Zoom unless you have. Yeah, you can't join Zoom unless you have a up-to-date client.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, I just went through that whole thing. So, okay, I'm here, bro. What? Just kind of update me. Is this this article? We don't have to go backtrack on the other ones.
Yeah, this is the company that we covered in the past, like last month in January. The company that was
wow. So they
converting
opened a whole entire plant.
bikes
That's a
in
whole
Africa.
hangar right there.
Yeah, so they were able to get 100,000 square feet of space for manufacturing and capacity and research and development.
That's a lot of space. You do a lot of research and development in that kind of space.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, you can test out new batteries. You can determine whether or not old batteries need to be recycled, or what are you going to do with them. And it creates jobs. It puts Black people to work. We can see plenty of Black people in some of these photos that would otherwise would not be working. And
with that amount of space,
Uber. No, I was just going to say that they talked about Uber, coming to East Africa as well, and so providing their infrastructure and logistics as well to this. And
yeah,
when you're a bike owner in Africa, it has to make money for you nonstop, whether you're, delivering goods, or you're offering rides, or, other sort of means as well, just traveling and stuff like that. There's the variety of ways that these sort of vehicles make people money. $5 goes a long way in some of these areas, depending on who you are and what your needs are. $5 goes a long way. And so if you're saying that, let's say if I'm an EV bike owner now, my bike has newly been converted by this company, Rome. Let's say if I do 20 rides a day at let's say $5, $5 American dollars
per ride.
That's pretty good. Per ride. Yeah, that's pretty good, especially because the fact I don't have to pay for gas.
We're talking about we're talking about $5 USD.
What are you talking about?
No, you said $5 per ride. We're talking like $5 USD in Africa.
Yeah, $5 USD versus the shilling. They have a shilling.
Oh,
right?
man,
so
dude, you're making a killing, bro. You're making a killing.
You're making
the
cost of living is significant.
Yeah. And you're not feeling
cost of living
this
is
thing.
significantly lower.
Yeah, and you're not feeling this thing. Well, you're feeling it with electricity. Right. So the cost of, recharging a scooter or an e-bike is way lower than if you were to gas up something. Oh man, yeah. The car, when you do the cost analysis on this, and I don't know, maybe if we go on in this live stream later, I can get on the computer and then we can show like the carbon credit calculator, for example. Right. So you can see all of the math and the numbers behind all of this. But no, you'd be making a killing doing it like that.
Yeah. Well, they actually have a calculator is built into their phone to determine what the it's built into their phone. And so the phone collects a lot of data. So it collects telemetry as they do their rides. All right, next item on the docket is from The Economist. The growth of Africa's towns and small cities is transforming the continent. Urbanization is making lives better, but not as much as it could. Oh man, so I forgot my login, but I'll just cover the initial piece here. In 2012, when Moses Alou inherited a plot from his grandfather. His neighborhood in Kisumu, Western Kenya, had plenty of farmland, but over the past decade, as Kisumu has grown, Naya Marisa, Marisa has become part of the city. Mr. Alu is building 2 houses on his land. He will rent them out, quote, hopefully to God-fearing people for 8,000 shillings, $62 per month, more than twice the rate 5 years ago. Now it is urban, he says. This is a prime area. The city's growth has disrupted traditional ways. Jamalik Onchari, who rents a one-room house behind his small dairy in Namaruzaria, says that Kenyans who have moved from other parts of the country feel increasingly at home in the historic stronghold of the Luo ethnic group. This mix up things. He says, with people from different tribes, it speeds up development because when people live together, they bring ideas together. And so, actually, let me see if I can log in real quick.
While Mike is signing in, hope everybody's Sunday afternoon / evening is going well with this daylight savings Sunday. Threw me off guard, well, that's for sure.
All right, I don't have my login for this. I don't know what's going on here. I don't remember myself being logged out of this, but here's what I'll say to this. Africa is shifting to a more modern urbanization transition that hasn't been fully mapped out yet. And so what's happening here is different people are coming from different parts, and they typically do not, mute complex real quick. Yeah, they typically don't, or they have not always lived amongst each other in that capacity. You know, if someone lived outside of Nairobi, there was no real reason for them to come all the way to Nairobi unless it was for civic engagement or something to that effect. And so now you have all of these sort of new tech people or new upwardly mobile people moving in the environment, and they typically haven't really engaged each other at that level. They didn't have to live amongst each other at that level. And so now that they're moving and they're moving into these environments, that they have to bring their whole selves to the environment. And what that's doing is it's causing more people to congregate in ways that they hadn't done before. Now you have different sort of tech people coming together, and they're coming up with solutions for the environment that, you know, maybe the government couldn't solve, or maybe they saw a solution to something that they, you know, they've just come by. So say something like electric motorcycles or electric vehicles, electric buses, electrification, fintech, different sort of aspects that they want to close the gap. There's a lot of social gaps and technological gaps in a lot of places outside of the United States that most people in the United States don't understand. We take for granted here, but in these other places, they don't have that. And so just think of like a drone having the ability to deliver medicine from one area to the other that does not have road or civil infrastructure in place. You don't have to spend millions of dollars laying out, you know, asphalt for a road, or mining equipment and asphalt equipment and things of that nature, road infrastructure. You just traverse that by using drones to deliver goods and services to people that typically would not have been able to have access to it in the past.
Hey, Mike, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, okay. There you go. All right. I just posted a link to episode 717 of the Black Brain Trust. So that was a tech talk that we did where we covered the digital transformation of Africa, the Agenda 2030 initiative. So what you're talking about, literally, the documentation for Agenda 2030 was covered in that live stream, and it literally hits on what you're talking about. So I just posted the link in the chat for those of y'all that want to kind of dig in the crates a little bit and then get a primer on what Mike's talking about.
Mm-hmm. All right, last item on the docket. This is from WLBT.com. Jackson Robotics team headed to the state championship.
Thugtastic.
A Jackson, Mississippi robotics team is heading to Ole Miss to compete in the state championship. The Jackson Hines Library Systems Sparkomatic robotics team advanced to the Mississippi First Tech Challenge Championship after performing well at the qualifying rounds in Laurel, Mississippi on February 11th. JHLS says it was proud of its team comprised of teens who meet at the library to learn STEM skills, build robots, and train to take their work to competitions. Now, who's been saying this in this space for all this time about libraries and the necessity to build out libraries to be social gathering for tech development?
Who's
been saying this?
My hand's raised. Let
me finish reading this. Quote,
go ahead.
In this new information technology age where folk are distracted by stories about failing library buildings, it is good to know that we have great technology program partnerships that are winning for our teams, said Floyd Council, executive director. Quote, we are thankful for our partnership with Herb Brown of the Mississippi Coding Academy and head coach Mark Leffler, who has been doing youth programming in robotics and digital arts at Medgar Evers Library for several years, working with Ann Sanders of JHALS. The state competition began on March 3rd and will end on March 4th at the Ted Smith Coliseum. 18 teams will represent their schools and communities as they seek to earn invitations to the first Tech Challenge World Championship, which will be held in Houston, Texas in April. So what we're talking about, actually, let me read the kids' names. Ollie Walker, Chris Johnson, Kyle Johnson, Darren Geis, Kellyanne Stevens, Christian Bradfield, Daniel Knott, and the coaches are Mark Leffler, Herb Brown, Kelvin Walton, and Derek Chapman. So I've been saying this for quite some time, and I feel like I'm beating a dead horse when I say this, but I have to keep putting emphasis behind this, that the way you industrialize the Black community is by leveraging the existing infrastructure that is here. Libraries, turning basketball courts into drone, or I shouldn't say basketball courts, but old football fields and tennis courts and things like that into drone test facilities, and and so on and so forth. This is the crux of what I've been saying for the last 5 or 6 years.
Yep.
Many people have laughed at me. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. But, you know, here we are. Everything that I have talked about, if you check the archive, I've been saying this for a very long time. If you want to improve the Black community for Black boys, you start investing in the immediate brick and mortar infrastructure.
Uh-oh. Yo, Mike, you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay, there you go. All right.
Yeah, my sound dropped out there for a second.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I just want to make sure you're there. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead if you got something to say.
No, dude, I'm co-signing with everything you're saying, bro. I don't have anything. I'm in 100% agreement.
And you're not going to get that by sitting at home and not voting. You have to vote on these issues. Infrastructure, libraries are a part of infrastructure. Broadband is a part of infrastructure. Clean air is a part of infrastructure. Clean water is a part of infrastructure. Okay, electrification is a part of infrastructure. If you don't have, you know, any of these things going, then you're not going to be able to get anything done. This is not rocket science, despite the fact that these guys are, you know, these young guys are building robots and drones and whatnot. It's not rocket science to figure this out. You have to be able to vote and engage in the political process to get the things that you need. The ability to turn a library into a drone research lab, that's impressive. That's completely impressive. Now, if you listen to certain pundits in Black male spaces, the gynocracy, the matriarchy, the Illuminati, the Bilderberg, okay, George Soros, all of these sort of invisible barriers that are keeping Black boys from advancing, I call BS. And I give you example A.
Bingo.
How do you argue with this?
I don't think you can, but that's just me.
Yeah, the link's in the chat. Anybody can come up and make that argument. I'd be
tell
interested in
us
hearing
how this group of young men are destined for a life of nothing.
Yeah.
Because,
many,
women.
I mean, how many times do we have to keep going over this week in and week out where you see Black boys advancing in fourth industrialization? Once these dudes graduate, I mean, they're only 13 and 14 now. Once they become 18, 19, 20, 21, man, them dudes are out of here. MIT is going to be knocking on their door. Johns Hopkins, UC, Berkeley, or name your D1, D2 institution. They're going to be knocking on these guys.
They're all going to be knocking.
Yeah, they're all going to be knocking on these guys' doors. Morehouse will probably be knocking on the door, even though they're not a D1. They're going to be knocking on these guys' doors to come in and enroll in their institutions. Okay. This is the power of innovation, aspiration, and meeting people where they are. And you have so many, Black men who are defeatists in this space arguing that, Black boys, they're being held by their mothers from advancing. Are they really? Can we look at these 4 boys on the screen, and are they really? Going to the top of the state to compete against other probably non-Black people for
who's holding them back? Who's holding them back?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just see 4 stout young brothers right there, dude, trying to get it in on the robotics tip. That's what I see.
Yeah.
Fuck all that other shit. Look at young cat in the blue right there. Look how he's standing, bro. Look at his pose.
He's the youngest out of all of them, right?
I'm saying, look at these cats, bro. That's why I'm like, yo, dead that nonsense, bro. Dead that.
Yeah. But this is where we at. A whole lot of people who sold a lot of wolf tickets about Black boys not being able to advance, or they're reading at a third grade level. I mean, yeah, people may have some learning disabilities in some areas or some learning challenges, but who's stopping these boys from advancing? What gynocracy? I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know. Like I said, the way they stand in it's like getting their way. Test them.
Yeah.
A lot of confidence in their composure. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. When I was their age, man, Radio Shack had a 30-in-1 electronics kit, and someone gave that to me for Christmas. And that's how I got to where I am today. Okay. It gave me a soldering iron, gave me some solder. The instructions were there. Actually, let me see if I can find it on Google.
Yeah. Because for me, it was that, you know, it was early Apple 2E computer and RC cars.
Let me see.
And not only that, but just taking random shit apart in the house.
Oh, here it is right here. Here it is right here.
Found it?
Yep. Let me show you real quick.
BGS decided to go live right now. Okay.
Here we go right here.
Oh, snap. That's it.
Yeah. Someone gave me one of these.
Yeah. That's the joint
young,
right
man.
there, dude.
That's exactly how it looks. I got one of those
That's
when I was
exact joint right there.
I got one of those when I was like, let me see, about 11 or 12. That got me into electronics. That right there got me into electronics.
Yo, those kids was all day, every day at Radio Shack, bro.
Yeah. Easy Christmas gift, man.
Yep.
I wonder if that's mine. I don't, you know, I'm a bit of a hoarder when it comes to like boxes. I don't like to throw them away. But this is what I had. When was this manufactured? Oh man, this had to be like 1985.
Dude, that's like 80, 85, 86 maybe.
Yeah.
There's the what is there a date on there?
No, there's no date on it. It's just the cat number. Radio Shack used a cat.
That's the catalog number. Yeah. Catalog. That's like 86 right there.
Yeah, easy. Easy, that's from 86.
Yeah, that's the 86 kit.
But now you have Raspberry Pi kits and so on and so forth. And so
yeah, you got the Raspberry Pis, you got the Arduinos, all that stuff, right?
And so when I was in Africa, a couple of years ago, I had met some children who were impoverished. You know, they didn't have, I should say, digitally impoverished. They did not have this sort of technology available to them. I mean, they can go to school and whatnot in these sort of, container sort of schools and whatnot, but they didn't have like they didn't have access to the technology, to be completely blunt. That being said, I bought one of these, not this exact model, but I bought a robotics kit from a Micro Center, okay? This thing is so fantastic to them. Their mind was blown when I heard them, screaming over the phone in joy, man. It brought me to tears because I didn't think that something like this would be that impactful to those kids in South Africa.
That's something that that's what I'm saying, bro. It's like these types of things that kind of led us to where we are today.
Mm-hmm.
Most people like kind of take this shit for granted, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then when we think back, it's like, dude, these things are critical.
Mm-hmm.
They were critical, man.
Yeah, it's the difference between, me running the streets, getting into foolishness versus me being in the house playing with this. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
That saved my childhood.
Same here, bro. RC cars, all that shit, man.
Yeah. Oh, I had the Radio Shack Red Arrow, the Golden Arrow, the Black Phantom. I had, many different sort of Radio Shack cars, and Nico and Tamaya.
Yeah, I had like maybe one or two Nico cars, and then I moved into like Kyosho and Traxxas after that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So this is what saved me. This saved me. This is what got me to where I am today. And I greatly appreciate the folks who looked out for my best interest. There was no gynocracy stopping me from doing anything, man. They put this in front of me, man. My head exploded. I said, no way.
Yo, this was the lick right here, bro.
Absolutely, man.
Shit, absolutely. Amiga computers, those were at Radio Shack.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Before you had laptops, you had like word processors. Okay, you had these sort of half typewriter, half computer.
Half computer, yeah.
Yeah, that And so I'm saying all this so that you guys understand that the way you get to Black boys is by gifting them something like this, man. You can go down to Micro Center, Best Buy, Target, whatever it is. Amazon sells these as well. Spend that $50, $60, $100 on one of these Raspberry Pi drone kits for a Black child, man.
Yep.
It's one of the best investments you're going to make. Okay. One of the best investments you're going to make in a Black child is to give them a STEM kit. Boy and girl.
Yeah. I was going to say either one, dude. Like, for my daughter, man, I got her an iPad and loaded it up with what's the drawing application? I forgot what it's called. Create, I think it's called Procreate or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so she's good at like freehanding like anime characters and stuff, but like now in Procreate, she can like animate them, right? She can give them movement, all that kind of stuff. So a different take on what we're talking about here, but these are all like the productive, beneficial applications of this stuff. And I honestly, for Black boys, I think you and I both agree, this right here, RC car stuff where you can use the soldering iron, tools, you're doing literally everything. Right, when it comes to the electronics and mechanical side of things. Like, I think that shit is crucial.
In this day and age, absolutely.
Yep.
They're doing this right now. By the time they're 21, man, they're going to be so comfortable with the technology. It's going to be second nature to them.
Bro, they can go from right now, they can go into electric vehicles. It's the same stuff. It's a motor, a controller, and a battery. It's an electronic power source, a controlling mechanism, and some movement mechanism, a motor, servo. These guys already have an innate understanding and knowledge of how the intrinsic side of this stuff works. At this age, right now, this is what we're talking about. If I gave them an electric scooter, they'd be like, "Oh yeah, this is how this works. Show me. Can you crack it open? Just show me. Oh, okay." And then they'll sit there and trace it for you. They'll tell you how everything's connected. They already know it because it all works the same.
Yeah. Yeah, and the thing here is, you're bringing the technology closer to them rather than sending them far away to go to a place that they don't even know to engage in something that they are not 100% comfortable with. You're making it comfortable for them now. It's second nature to them. It's like a second language to them. Okay, instead of learning Spanish, they're going to learn Python. Okay, that's the second language that they're going to learn. Yeah, Roger Spice says Micro Center has half an aisle on those. Yeah, they have a whole entire, Micro Center has redesigned their stores just for robotics. Okay, just for robotics. I bought, that's where I got the robotics kits from. I got them from there. I shipped them to South Africa. Heads exploded on the ground. Okay, they were blown away by this stuff.
See, the sad part is, Mike, is we had Fry's over here on the West Coast, and all those closed down. We don't have any Micro Centers over here.
Yeah, I think Micro Center is expanding. They opened up 3 new stores, so I think LA is going to be another area that they're going to open up in. Yeah, they put out that news last week.
Yeah, because when Fry's, you went to Fry's to get all that stuff out here, right? That's when I just used to build all kind of different types of PCs, and I was in Fry's like every other day. But yeah, when all those shut down, that was it for that, right? There's no component stores you can go to out here on the West Coast anymore, at least to my knowledge, right? There's no Fry's that are open. And
Amazon kind of killed Fry's, right? And so one of the things that keeps Micro Center in business from a brick and mortar perspective is MIT, because Micro Center is right next door to MIT, like literally within feet. And so a lot of the people, a lot of the students and a lot of the people who build computers and they do all the customization, they flood Micro Center in order to get because you could easily go on Amazon and order something, have it shipped the next day. That's just not what they do. The culture is different. And so culture changes how a business operates. And so from a brick and mortar standpoint, that's what keeps Micro Center in business, is that loyal customer base that they don't really respect Amazon. They respect Micro Center more.
I mean, shit, dude, I would have imagined, now from my understanding with Fry's, because Fry's is Indian owned or is Indian owned, because they still have the grocery stores, right? There's Fry's grocery stores too, right? So like the Fry's corporate company or the umbrella company still exists, right? But the Fry's electronics side, it had something to do with the fact that their access to components and stuff got dried up, and I think you hit on it. Amazon has something to do with that. Yeah, but then with Micro Center, that makes sense, right? Given that its proximity is so close to MIT, they would have more of a secure supply chain because of the type of people because of their clientele, essentially. And they would have the ability to secure that supply chain because of the clientele that's from MIT. So it would make what you're saying, makes total sense.
Now, we talked about self-driving cars, Arduinos, and drones. Like, these young Black boys are involved in robotics. You have, if you're an adult, you have Udacity, which offers nano degrees in self-driving car technology, robotics, and so on and so forth. And so we've covered this before. It's a 5-month program, 10 hours a week. Yeah, and it's online, and it's fairly straightforward for all intents and purposes. So we got Dr. Phoenix on the panel. What's going on, bro?
Hey.
Good. How are you guys doing? Good evening.
Hey, man. How's your Sunday going, brother?
Oh, it's going well. Going well. I've got a little free time. Hopefully everything's going well with you, gentlemen.
Yes,
no,
yeah, man.
Yeah, I just wanted to add I guess my 2 cents to the discussion. Something very
2
interesting.
cents, that's it? Oh, fuck it.
Yeah. No, interestingly enough, you guys are, I think this is a very good discussion. Certainly for, you guys were talking about the things that happen with you all, gifts that you received as children that put you on the path where you're at now. And, similar things happened with me as well. I can remember I was 5 or 6, and one Christmas I got a microscope. I got a microscope set, I got a chemistry set, and I got an electronics set. And I think, yeah, and I think of all the things I got that year for Christmas, I think those 3 things were probably the ones that I used the most. I even think then, yeah, I even got I want to say I might have got a what was it, a PlayStation or something like that. I can't remember, but anyhow. But the point is, it is very important to really expose children at young ages to these to math, STEM. I know a lot of it gets talked about when you're dealing with robotics and that. And while I think that's equally important, I think something that never really gets talked about and something that probably affects Black people even more is Black folks getting involved in not just the sort of the physical sciences with engineering and stuff like that, but really the biological sciences and stuff like that, because those things are where you've seen some of the biggest areas of growth over the last few years. Again, if you go back to the beginning of the year 2000, you had the Human Genome Project that ended, and that is essentially what really sparked the push for AI and for stuff like gene editing, technology. It was basically a CRISPR. It was basically a lot of those advances, a lot of those outcomes of that decade of research and development that was obviously funded by the government in part, where you've seen the results of that really was just this explosive growth in 10 or 15 years in areas of AI and biomedical research. And, again, these have been topics you all have covered in the past, but I think it needs to be reiterated given that there's some very noticeable medications that have come on the market and or are looking to come on the market in the next few years. One of the most important ones being that there's another Alzheimer's medication that's coming on the market. So if you guys don't know, there's 2 that are essentially used right now, but as of this moment, you're looking for, there's a 3rd one that was just recently approved that is eventually going to hit the market in a short period of time. But the point is that exposing kids to these to initiatives like this at young ages really kind of sets that foundation, because again, you don't really make these folks into scientists or engineers and stuff like that once they're in high school or college. No, you have to cultivate this at young ages. You have to, these folks are made. You make an engineer, you create an engineer, you create a scientist, you create a physician, you create these kinds of folks. These folks are people that are developed over a period of time. And that's truly how you measure the success of these types of things, is like what happens over a period of time. What happens when they're 4 or 5 years old? You wouldn't see some of the issues that we see with a lot of times with young boys, certainly in the areas of math and sciences where they struggle or things like that, if these concepts are presented early in childhood and they become more comfortable with that. So
yeah,
I haven't seen anything like the from a biological or biomedical standpoint.
They have programs like this. I mean, there are programs all over the country. I mean,
I'm saying gifts. I'm saying gifts in terms of giving a child a gift, like a CRISPR kit or something, right? You don't have. I haven't seen that.
Yeah, like the equivalent of one of the electronics kits, right?
Well,
but for
because a lot of those things can tend to be, you can tend to learn a lot. You learn that's pretty high level stuff.
Yeah.
And so part of the issue with sort of biomedical stuff is that typically you really need to understand the basics.
So would that be
children-
like the microscopes and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's the basics. Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
knowing your way around the laboratory, certainly knowing how to, utilize a microscope. Because I mean, again, you have you have your basic compound microscopes, but there are other kinds of microscopes. You have electron microscopes, you have scanning microscopes. I mean, these are things.
Oscilloscopes.
I mean, yeah, you have various instruments that you can use to analyze things that are microscopic and even at a nano level, that go far beyond than just utilizing a basic microscope. But again, you have to kind of those are things where you work your way up to that once you have a basic understanding of them, just a basic understanding of biological sciences, because it tends to include all of those areas. It includes math, it includes chemistry. Obviously, chemistry is a major component of the biological sciences. They're inseparable. And depending on which route you go down, you think of folks who are like cardiologists or people who are pulmonologists. Those are very, even in radiologists, for example, those are very, believe it or not, they're pretty math intensive.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have to, there are things that are going on. There are physiological processes. Again, the process of you breathing is a physical one. So it's one that's dictated by atmospheric pressure as well as internal pressure within the body.
And if I'm not mistaken, Johnny Blaze is in the radiological field. If I'm not mistaken. If he's out listening, man, it'd be cool if he could join to kind of follow up on that. Yeah.
No, I remember him and we talked about that. Yeah, he is in the radiological sciences. And so again, you have a lot of these, understanding the basic concepts makes it much easier to understand, intermediate and more advanced concepts within the biological science, and they all build on each other. Because you got areas of biology now. Probably the hottest area is really bioinformatics right now, which combines biology with computer science. And so you got biologists who code, who do data science related type stuff, biologists who are involved in AI development. And again, this is a training area for both, believe it or not, for both physicians and nurses. Yep. I think these are things that, have been talked about in the past, but, just to reiterate some of these things, these are sort of cutting edge areas of research and development where you're seeing massive growth and gains. And again, certainly in America, there's a definite lack of folks who can't do this work, because again, these are things that, you don't just, these folks don't just pop up. These folks are made. So.
Yeah, I was gonna say, these are the types of people that are primed to be at the sort of like the cutting edge of the opportunity curve, right?
Yeah, and I think we do ourselves a disservice by not, I think when you guys were earlier talking about these electronic sets you got as gifts, I can't think of the last time I've even heard a kid even tell me they gotten something like that. And I see, and it's one of these deals where, I can't think of a time where I really heard of certainly of a young Black boy who was told me they received such a gift. I mean, most kids, they think of a gift, they want an iPad or iPhone or something that allows them to do something related to social media, but nothing that really truly stimulates and get them to really think about the world around them and how things fit together.
I mean, that's kind of why, Mike and I kind of lament and talk about it so much, because it was such a, I mean, heck, you as well, man, it was a part of our upbringing, and it's kind of what has not only led us to what it is that we do professionally, but our understanding of how all this stuff operates, right? And it's, these types of tools, things. What was that, Mike? I think there was an eBay listing. Was it $13?
Yeah, but that's old. I mean, I wouldn't spend my money on something like that. I would actually.
No, I'm just saying. But look at the cost of it and the impact that it has for the cost, right? I mean, obviously.
But I think back then that thing was like $60-65, maybe even more.
Well, yeah, I think actually it was like $49.95 at. Wait, say that again. Dr.
No, I was
Phoenix?
just saying those back in the day, yeah, those sets were a little bit on the pricier side.
No, I think they
so.
were like $39.95, or there was like 2 or 3 of them, right? One would be like $39.95, one was like $49.95, and then there was another one that was like $69 or $79.95.
Oh,
There's
well,
like
no,
three
no, those things went up to $1,000, man.
in Radio Shack.
Yeah.
The ones in Radio Shack.
Yeah, they had 300s and ones. Let me see if I can pull it up.
Okay,
You know,
yeah,
I
pull those
remember
up.
that because they used to
Because
have
I
like
think
a
I'm looking at the ones
catalog.
for the kids, bro.
No,
Well, I remember as a kid, they used to have like the catalogs or whatever, if I remember
Yeah,
correctly.
yeah.
And I remember they had numerous sets like that, and they could get pretty expensive.
Really?
So,
Okay.
yeah.
I think I was looking at the ones for, for my age. I might not have been paying attention to the other ones, but I remember the ones that, because I had the one, literally the one that was like the one you showed, Mike. I had one of those.
Mhm.
So I think it's probably $50 or some shit, right? And
yeah.
I think there was another one in the kids section or something that may have went like $69.99 or $79.99, something like that. But
Here it is
I'm
right
not
here.
even doubting that they went higher than that. I'm not even doubting that shit.
Yeah, 301.
301. How much is that one?
I mean, right now it's
Well,
only
that's
nine.
on eBay. That's on eBay. Damn, 301. Wow, look at that.
You know, it's interesting because I remember when I was in undergrad, my alma mater, they do something called College for Kids. And so every summer, it was basically a program where they were bringing kids. Basically, I think the youngest kids were maybe 5, and they go all the way up to 12th grade. So seniors in high school. And, you know, they would get a chance to come in and do various courses. So I remember one of the gentlemen who wrote one of my letters of recommendation, he hosted something called Don't Get Punked by Math. He had a course called Don't Get Punked by Math, and basically had a bunch of middle schoolers. And there was a couple of kids, I think, that were in high school also in the course. But, he taught algebra, some pre-calculus type stuff. And it was just one of the most interesting things because one of the things that I did notice at the time was that that the black kids that were in the course with him, they were pretty quiet. They were quiet. They seemed to know what was going on. They definitely understood what was going on, but they just weren't really engaged. And when you talk to them, I think I think really a lot of black kids don't know how to really be comfortable just being smart and just being, just having interests that are beyond that of what typically we may see black children engaged in. So
Yeah. What's going on, Nicole?
Hey, what's going on, man? I'm just here listening to you guys, man. This is Butterlade, so I'm just
Hey,
checking.
yo.
What's
how you
up,
doing?
Complex? What's going on, my brother? Yeah,
What's
you got
going
Dr.
on?
Phoenix. What's going on, Doc Phoenix?
Good. How are you guys doing? How are you doing? It's been a long time.
Man, it's been a long time, doing a long time, but how are things going? Fantastic. So,
Good. Great
yeah,
to hear.
man. So, just checking you guys out. I was just thinking about it. I remember when I was very young, they were making chemistry sets. Some of those chemistry sets, in fact, they had to tone it down because we were dealing with some pretty heavy duty stuff back in the 60s and stuff when I was getting that stuff.
Mhm.
And some of those kids still had some very slightly radioactive elements that they were using, which were very low, which weren't really toxic, but it gave you certain types of reactions. And those chemistry sets were what people thought were actually pretty advanced and all that, but they had to tone some of the stuff down because some of the chemicals we were working with were a little wild, But anyway, just to say that all that stuff was very important, I think, to really get people, to get kids totally involved with science and the mathematics and all that. When you give those kids those sets, as you said, that really does set things off in the proper direction. And that's what we have to consistently kind of press on, and just looking to see it's that it's the gynocracy and all that just tearing everyone out of the frame. No, that's not really so. A lot of these mothers and stuff are buying these kids for their kids, so you have to kind of look at that and and kind of balance some things out, and let's get a little balance to some of this argument. But talking about young Black boys and getting them on the right track, like you guys are saying, Doc Phoenix, and what you guys are saying, you have to really start to cultivate that at very young ages. It's difficult to really make a lot of scientists or people later on, but it certainly does happen. There's no doubt about it. But you do get a better result when you start at younger ages. So the younger that they are exposed, the better it is. So so let's just stick towards that, and that's very those are very important points. And I'm not going to add much else to that at this stage, but this is a good conversation, and I'm just chiming in and just listening to a lot. So you guys go ahead, man. Go ahead.
Really quickly, just to add to that, something else that I think oftentimes really isn't emphasized, but truly, I mean, for those of us who've gone to college, if you talk to your non-Black peers, because I went to a PW, I imagine most brothers have as well. But if you talk to your non-Black peers, if you ask them, okay, why are you doing this? For example, for me, when a lot of the folks I knew, they were looking to go to medical school, they were looking to go to grad school, whatever. But here's the thing, they all knew people either within their immediate family or people, they were never more than a couple degrees of separation from people who were doing the things that they had an interest in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of the problem here, and unfortunately, I think this is something you have to really lay at the feet of Black men in particular, is that Black boys need to see examples. You can't push a child to do something that you haven't done yourself. So if you haven't had the ambition, if you never had any aspiration to do any of these things, it's really hard to get them. Yeah, you can get them the electronic set, you can give them the chemistry sets or whatever the case may be. You can put them in programs, but it makes an even more of a difference when the kids see someone that's close to them doing the very thing that they have an interest
in. Yeah, seeing is believing, right?
Yeah.
It can't be really what they can't see.
Yeah. It's really difficult to get them to really get them to connect the points. If they're saying, if I couldn't tell, I don't have children, but if I had children, it would be very difficult to tell them, well, if I didn't do what I do, then I say, well, you should be doing this. And they said, well, you didn't do this. What happens when a child asks you that? What happens when your son asks you, well, why did you not do this? And so again, that becomes something that unfortunately you really do have to lay at the feet of Black men, is that if you really truly want Black boys to be successful, they have to see examples of it in their fathers. No ifs, ands, or buts about this.
And you can't alpha your way through it.
No, you can't. I mean, whatever that means, but again, I just reiterate that point that children need to see examples of the things that they want to be. I can't name all of the friends and folks that I've known that are not Black. They got family. They have a father. Father was a surgeon. Uncle was an engineer. Uncle was a computer scientist. Whatever. And these folks. And it makes a world of a difference when you're an undergrad or you're a child and you have that interest and you growing up and you can see that and you get to interact with them. You get firsthand knowledge of what it's like to be a computer scientist. You get firsthand knowledge if you go in, you hang out with your parent, your mom or dad or whatever is a physician, and you get to go in and watch them do what they do every day. That kind of goes to that article you sent me last night. I did respond to it. That I'm like,
Okay.
but yeah, if you listen to it, he got inspired by it because both his parents were travel nurses.
Yeah.
That again, he was a little older, but nonetheless, it helps when you have people close to you who are doing the things you want to do, and you can see their results.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you listen to these black men in this black male space, I don't even know if you can call it a manosphere anymore. Some invisible force from the opposite sex is coming to stop them.
That's
now
that's
the
baloney,
new
man. That's just malarkey right there.
Yeah. Now the new conversation is, bank runs at Silicon Valley Bank. That's where they're
and that changes nothing. It changes whatever's going on with the bank in Silicon Valley changes nothing. Does not change the landscape, doesn't change anything. Again, the excuse can never be some external force. Look, everyone sitting on this panel, everyone in the chat, you've gone through hardships in life. I've gone through hardships. I didn't just wake up one day and decided I wanted to go to medical school. That's not how it worked. Everyone has hardships. You go through things. You second guess whether or not you're on the correct path. That's the way life is. Life is never this linear pathway. Linear pathway. No, it is this path that is curved. It is circular. Sometimes it's never straight. And I think as black men, so many black men do, especially for the ones that have sons, do their sons a disservice by not being the very thing that you encourage your son to do.
Well, we have covered younger black males in the past on this channel. Even during COVID, there was a young black male who created a social distance detector through a Raspberry Pi or something like that.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and he was trying to raise money. He was trying to raise money for something. I forget what it is right now. But anyway, he was trying to raise money. How many black men from the manosphere put their money up for that?
We posted it too. We shared it on the community tab and all that.
Yeah, I think I put $100 or something like that on there, or forget how much it was at the time. But some of the biggest contributors were black women on that GoFundMe. And so you ask these guys in this space, 15-point agendas, black boys reading at a third grade level. Okay, so what are you going to do about that? Bank runs at Silicon Valley Bank. Russia is going in war in Ukraine. Everything except for the immediate, issue right now. I mean, some of these guys go so far as to say, that the immediate threat to black boys isn't white supremacy. It's the gynocracy. And then, you get them talking about everything other than,
I must admit,
what's important.
I'll be honest with you guys. I've kind of been tuned out to the space for
the past, tell us about it, Dr. Phoenix.
Couple years. So I don't really know, but what I do know is what I see. And what I see is that, for young black boys to truly be successful, to truly be ready for the 21st century. And really now we're thinking about it. We're technically in the third decade of the 21st century, which is kind of something unbelievable to really think about. But nonetheless, the trajectory that black males have been on for the past few decades is truly unsustainable.
Absolutely.
You can't have generation after generation of black males who are understanding why it's important to be involved in AI development, robotics, involved in the STEM, the sciences, and all of that. And again, that comes down to the fathers. So again, if the fathers aren't disciplined, I don't expect the boys to be disciplined. If the fathers are complaining about all these external factors, but yet your child, your son can't do basic algebra in middle school, can't read. Even look, we already know the stats, and these stats, they're true. They're applicable to a group, but yeah, to individual boys, no, obviously not, because you see an example of it on your screen here. But as a group, yes, these stats are applicable.
Mm-hmm.
And the fundamental issue is that for Black men, for the fathers of all these Black boys that are represented in these negative stats, then what are you going to do about it?
Right.
Because again, Black women have figured out that, hey, you know, we got Black girls can code, Black girls in STEM, Black girls whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And they figured out that, hey, we go pull the next generation along, but yet I don't see a Black male initiative on the other hand. And so, you know, what you gentlemen are doing tonight and what you have always done is very important. But again, this inevitably falls at the feet of Black men as a group.
Well, Dr. Phoenix, to kind of provide some slight pushback, you do have other Black male initiatives out here, such as the Hidden Genius Project, as we're looking at right here, which seems to be one of the most robust, Black male initiatives in the country, with all the investment that's coming from Comcast, Universal, NBC, at $2 million for a grant. And so I think there is a vacuum for this, for Black boys. And I do think that there is a unwillingness by a specific demographic of Black men to not see other Black boys advance, but to use these Black boys as human shields and hostages so that they don't have to take action, is what I see in this space. I see guys putting up big super chats, $100, 50 balls, whatever you want to call it, and when you start talking about things like this, they're like, oh, well, it's not my responsibility to do this. It's not my responsibility to do that. And it's like, okay, so whose responsibility is it then?
Well, not only that, Mike, it's like, where you put your money shows you where you find value in things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. See, so when the initiatives like this come on deck, we don't see, what is it, the 50 ball, the 100 ball or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't see that flowing this, to shit like this, but when it comes to that gynocracy talk,
I mean, let's call out a lot of these guys who are talking this mess. They're not productive.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't been that successful. They've done very little themselves. They're not capable of doing much. Most of these guys are coming here. This is probably the first place they ever got any respect or even got an audience or whatever. They've been relatively marginal. And here they are talking some smack, and they're not about moving on anything. What is their bottom line? My old man taught me many years ago, if a guy or a person or whatever doesn't truly have a bottom line, they're trying to bullshit you. He told me that many years ago, and it's the older I've gotten, the truer it has become. And that's basically all we're fundamentally looking at. These guys are not about doing anything. And it's not even so much you have to go out and yourself got to organize it, but put some decent information out there so at least people can look around and say, hey, listen, this is where we can potentially go. This is this is part of a solution that we could look at. So in your communities or where you are, you can actually act. You can move to do something. And if that's just getting your kid educated well, if that's just going to various school board or having meetings or what you're involved in locally in your community to make some things better potentially there, you should be disseminating some pretty good information. These guys are not about disseminating good information because they don't want to be involved in actually trying to do anything, but they want to stay relevant, talk bullshit, and sit around and sell that because a lot of guys are mad at these females and mad at what's happened, and and a lot of these guys are in their 40s and 50s and 60s who have been torn out the frame, and they're still trying to sell that bag to you, and that's just not where things. That's just where not things are at. So we have to look at this for really what it is, and call it out for what it is as well. And that's what a lot of you guys don't want to deal with. Go ahead. Somebody want to say something?
No, I was just going to say that, we covered this brother a couple months ago. His name is Josh Aviv, who's created Spark Charge. He actually came out of one of those incubators, a maker lab, or makerspace. Sorry, a makerspace. He came out of that. And so, you need these sort of spaces to help cultivate that sort of talent.
Right.
So that these guys are not created in a vacuum. You got to go out there and create the environment and the space so that they can actually engage in it. So that they can actually engage their skills and their curiosity in that space. What they did in Jackson, I think, is impeccable. We've been talking about this on this channel since day one. You have to fix the infrastructure first. That's bottom line. I was just on Ike's show, Case Closed, and I was just talking about this, that infrastructure gaps play a significant role in learning. If you live in Chicago, where it's just, the windy city, and you don't have enough heating coming through your school, it's kind of hard to learn. Or if it's too hot and you don't have enough air conditioning, it's kind of hard to learn, man. It's infrastructure gaps play a significant role into how you cultivate an environment so that you can get that sort of thing, this sort of thing off the ground. And so go ahead, Dr. Phoenix.
No, just really quickly. I think this is very important. I guess my tidbit about this is that ultimately success is going to start and happen in the home.
Yep. And
so arguably, yes, there can be initiatives, and you can get incubators that are started and funded and seem like the one you just put up seem to be well funded. Yes, but I think I see that more as a Band-Aid.
Mm-hmm.
And the fundamental issue is simply put that, children, young people still spend most of their time at home. Outside of the incubators, whatever, mentoring, whatever, they're still going to spend most of their time in that home environment. And whatever that environment is what ultimately is going to have the biggest effect on them. And so while I agree with these, and I think these are great, and again, I'm talking as someone who grew up in Chicago, so I'm from Chicago, but I will tell you that ultimately you can put initiatives behind it, but if you don't fix the fundamental issue, which is the home, where these kids are coming from, who are the parents of these children, I mean, it's still gonna be a problem.
Well, I mean, Dr. Phoenix, I think that's where. Okay, go ahead.
I just want to say this very quickly. We were tutoring at the Harlem School Zone. I haven't been there since the pandemic in 2020, and then when things hit, we kind of fell back. But really, what I really saw was you had a community kind of come together and really help to create, a teaching, educational infrastructure that was able to involve everyone. Where a lot of single mothers were involved with this. You have to understand, bringing kids to school. You had teachers, many of them Black men who were teaching as well, with Canada and the whole day. Everyone kind of knows a lot of what's going on there. And what we saw was really somewhat of a community effort. And we're going to have to really start to look and really, really talk about that, because that works. And it's easier to get the community together when you organize than a lot of people would like to say. And what we do see are that Black people, Black mothers, Black fathers, and so forth, uncles, a lot of us who are in the boomer generation are taking care of many of these young millennials, kids, these days now. I'm one of them, who definitely, influences that situation very heavily as that nuclear family is actually, kind of almost come back into play again the way it was in the old days. But now your grandparents and so forth are taking care of a lot of these kids or being big influences there. And you have that community coming together and really helping a lot of these kids get educated. We've seen where kids have come out of situations where maybe some of them have not had fathers and had the proper backdrop, but yet from a community perspective, educational infrastructure that was built to help them, those same kids can go into a school structure and ultimately be the highest performers, literally not only in your state, but in your country. Mm-hmm. So I've seen that as well. So the home is broad. You can broaden the home, if you will. And that's something that we have to consistently think about now. When you start talking to some of these people in the sphere here and they're saying, fuck these kids and screw this and screw that and screw the community and all that, mm-hmm. they're not about really, doing anything or really thinking about anything. And I think many of them don't even have kids, or if they do, who knows how well they're doing. But you have to look at that from that perspective too. So it's not a simple black and white issue, but that true essence of a community does help to raise a kid to a certain degree. That still holds true to this day. We should not lose sight of that as well. I've worked in a situation as a volunteer, tutoring in an institution where, well, it was a group that's actually that I was a part of a group that was involved with this, that was involved, that really showed you really what was really going on from a community perspective. And it was a confluence of men and women who really helped put that together, and still has one of the highest performing, academic, institutions for Black people almost anywhere in this country. So we have to look at that, and that can be broadened. We have to look at those examples and broaden it from there. But it's just not just what goes on simply in that one home. As long as you have people who are willing to take these people to the areas to where they can get better educations, which we've seen these mothers and others do, they will do that. They will participate. So we have to really work hard to help to create these institutions, of which there's without a question we can, and the infrastructure is there for us to do it. So and it's being done, It's not like this is a dream. It's being done, and marvelously in certain respects. It's not as broad as it should be, but it is being done. So I just want to make sure that we keep our eyes on that as well, because that's a truth that's out there that we're not talking as much about as we should. Okay, guys, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, and then I'll pass it off to Ernest. I think that we may have to really look at the Black community, or Black people, I should say the Black community, as a startup, and think about what are the necessary components that are going to be beneficial to moving forward, and just work from that perspective. I mean, we talk about STEM a lot on here because it's been proven that it works. It's very effective. I have yet to see a STEM graduate, catch a body out here, so to speak. I haven't seen anybody, getting jammed up in that capacity like some of these other guys do. And so I think we should really look at creating these sort of multiple platforms that we know works, that it's effective, but we're actually putting more emphasis behind what works and what doesn't work. Ernest, go ahead. You've been waiting.
Hey guys, yeah, shout out to Jackson. We had a lengthy discussion that night, Mike, about 2 or 3 weeks ago about Jackson.
Oh, you on MOT's panel?
No, I was on yours at Friday night. We're talking about.
Okay, I remember you now. Okay,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah. I want to ask Dr. Phoenix. Dr. Phoenix, while I agree with you 100% on as far as the influences of the father, you made you made a very good dissertation for in-house dads, which I'm gonna assume we're in the minority in the Black community based on the 70% out of wedlock births. What would you do about, because if you're influenced by your dad and your dad is Pookie and Ray Ray, then you have to go outside the home, or there has to be some added influences, since 70% of the fathers, give or take, are not in the home.
So so you're asking me, what do kids who don't have those advantageous upbringing or home environments, what would they do, or what should they do?
What should they do? You said that the dad is the influence of why, there's a copy and paste from the dad to the son. But if 70% don't have a dad in the home, then what do they do?
I mean, ultimately, these are issues where, yes, you can have community-based initiatives. You can have folks out in the community. You can have teachers, that are involved. I think the example that Nagona Levin gave a few minutes ago, I think is a good example, where if you're having an entire community that's coming together to meet a need for children that have it, yes, those things work. And ultimately, I'm just gonna be really frank here. When it comes to mentorship, I think the term kind of gets abused in Black America, because I think a lot of times people think of mentorship as a replacement for fatherhood, and that's not really what mentorship is about.
Right.
Mentorship is meant to help to facilitate you moving through a particular industry, a particular career path or field, or whatever the case may be. And I think oftentimes that gets abused and overlooked, because there are pretty high rates of fatherless households in Black America. But again, I think a lot of what happens is that you're having, sometimes it is going to be on the responsibility of the kid to, sometimes if you see someone that's doing something that you like, it could be a teacher, a professor, whatever the case may be. Yes, sometimes make yourself presentable to that person. I give you an example, my own example. I met two of my mentors literally my first day of undergrad. And these folks, they kind of helped me through the process and got me through undergrad and all of that. But these folks were some of my biggest advocates, and folks who ultimately went on to write me letters of recommendation for medical school. But again, I had to prove myself to them. And sometimes I think that's really a hard sell to a lot of young folks, is that you actually do have to prove yourself to people who do have the ability to kind of facilitate you moving through these particular industries easier, if you will.
Well, they only have so much time and energy, right, to give.
Yes, and that's
to
a good
people,
point.
and they're going to lend that to the people who show the most initiative. But to kind of circle back to the question that you asked, Dr. Phoenix, I want to say this, and I'm gonna step away from it. I gotta finish getting dinner together, so I gotta run a quick errand. For the question that you asked, Dr. Phoenix, it was interesting because, Dr. Phoenix, when you mentioned mentorship and things like that, that's always like the backup scenario to what you were actually espousing, right? The backup scenario versus the ideal scenario, right? 2-parent household, which then gives us the best outcomes as far as our children. Mike and I, we covered the young brother who was I don't know, is he 9 or I don't know how old he is.
The 9-year-old kid that's a college grad.
Just a few weeks ago. Right. Both his parents, I think, are educators, stuff like that.
Yeah,
we see that, like, here's the thing. See, when you have that kind of scenario, these types of results are replete. You see it over and over and over and over. The issue here is that it's not necessarily the ideal scenario with regards to Black community writ large, which is problematic, right? See, so that means that if it's not the ideal scenario, then that means the mentorship, the fill in the blank, family unit type of idea has to then come into play. So that means that various people have to come up and step up and be various things to this person at various times of their lives, right? And who knows if that's reliable, right? You can't just let's just go back to what Dr. Phoenix is saying. Okay, well, look, people who serve as mentors, they only have but so much time to give that to. Not everybody's going to have a mentor, even, right? Especially if it's determined and predicated upon their own initiative. So this is the reason why, in lieu of this, the best scenario is just, God damn, man, have your dad in the goddamn house.
But every dad is not a dad, though.
I understand. We understand all that. We're just kind of speaking to the schism between having two parents in the home and how it works for the child versus the mentorship model when it's kind of single parentage. And, there could have been things that could have been done to ensure the two parent household side of things, but it wasn't. We opted for the other, right? I've seen both sides of the equation, right? So that's the reason why, I wanted to kind of follow up on what Dr. Phoenix was saying. It's like, yeah, you could have the mentorship side and all that, but even the people that are going to serve as mentors, they have lives, and there's only going to be so much time and things like that they can give to a mentee. See, so that then the onus is on the mentee to have the initiative, right, to receive that mentorship.
Yeah, and I think that's really the big play here, is that understanding that yes, there are options. I'm not saying that children who come from single parent household have no options. No, they have options, but at the end of the day, this comes down to whether or not children do have to show some initiative here. It can't just be all on an initiative or a program or mentor, because ultimately what happens to you as a mentor, and I'll give you a prime example. I use myself, for example, and I talked about my past. I've talked about when I was an undergrad, I was a Ronald McNair scholar. But by the time I was like maybe 3 months in, my mentor, she picked up 2 more mentees who were freshmen coming in, who were coming into the honors college, because they were coming in with a 3.7, or you had to come in with a 3.5 or higher. I think these two folks had 3.7s. But the point is that by that time she picked up 2 more mentees, so I had to help her mentor these students. And that's the expectation. You don't just become the mentee, you become the mentor at some point. And so that's why that initiative is so important. Why having initiative and having the discipline, and oftentimes mentors have to be selective about who they pick, because you as a mentee will ultimately become the mentor at some point.
Yeah, and I think I agree with you on that, but we also have to close the gap, right? The social gap of not having. Like, I'm reading a comment from Raul in the chat room. He says the real question is, do Blacks want to be a group who always need a program to do basic things? Mentorship can't take place of fatherhood. But the thing here is, you're in a very unique situation that is not reflected across other demographics in the United States. And so if you want to see more of you, then you're going to have to cultivate more of them. And the only way you're going to really be able to do that at this point is, over the next generation, is to cultivate more of those, what you see on screen. I can't imagine looking at these, any one of these young dudes, if all of them together, and saying, I just don't got time for you. I need to talk about the gynocracy tonight at 11. I just don't.
No, I agree. I agree with you on that. But again, I think the men that you're talking about that have those conversations, I think these are truly, how can I put it? These were men that were never going to be a part of this anyway. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they never really had a vested interest in none of this anyway. But the point is that, yes, as young as folks, like, look, I can tell you now, I come across kids all the time. Yeah, they want to get mentored. That's just, yes. And I do, but I can't have 10 to 20 mentees. I don't have enough time in the world for that.
No. I don't think that
And
that's,
given
I
that
don't,
there's
yeah.
already few of us in these various industries and professions that do this, you have to be extremely selective about who you pick. And that's really what I'm getting at. And so, like the story you was telling with these young gentlemen here, no, I think this is a great story where, yes, you know, that there's certainly an infrastructure, something in place to help these kids and to help these kids and to get, in fact, to show these kids, well, really to help them get to the state championship in robotics. I mean, yeah, I mean, these kids showed some initiative. Somebody believed in them enough because these kids showed them something that made someone believe in them. Or so again, I think that's really truly the thing. I think, you know, we honestly have to take a really hard look and ask ourselves, is, you know, ultimately every single kid, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news here, you're not going to be able to mentor every single kid out here.
No, I don't think that's the goal, though. I
Yeah.
don't think that's the goal. I think the goal is to find the ones who are salvageable, like what you see on screen, and make better men out of them, and make better and make better you know, productive members of society out of those, rather than to leave them, you know, into the wind like a kite, because some people don't feel that it's necessary to, you know, to use mentorship. I just don't. I came out of NISB, so I'm not privy to that perspective that, you know, we believe that everybody's salvageable in that capacity. And so we don't really turn people away.
That's what I was, that's Mike, you hit it on the head as far as the basis of my question. Now, when I posed my question, I don't think I ever used the word mentor.
Mhm.
I don't think I ever brought it up about being a mentor. I just said, what should we do? And sometimes, yes, a young brother have to show initiative, but sometimes we have to build it so they will come. For instance,
I don't think that quite works.
stay with me, brother. Stay with me. Stay with me. For instance, I have a great nephew, my brother's grandchild, who this summer I sort of financially, well, I didn't sort of, I financially sponsored for him to go to a STEM camp in Jackson. Now I don't know him that well. I've only met him maybe 3 or 4 times, but I didn't see an initiative from him. He's I think he's 10 years old. And so I enrolled him into Sylvan's summer STEM camp in Jackson, because while if we wait on the spark from the child, then we might be leaving some out who may need a spark. And I'm doing the same thing for my twin nephews in the Memphis area, putting them in a STEM camp in the summer. So sometimes we can sort of take the small initiative, and we don't have to go too far. We can probably do it within our own family environment, and we don't have a lot of you know, techies in that environment. So sometimes you have to build it so they will come. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I think it works both ways. I think, you know, there may have to be initiative on their side, but if there is no initiative, then I think you have to actually facilitate that as an adult. The boys in South Africa that I sent the kits to, they didn't have any, any inkling of what a drone or a UAV could actually do. All they knew was Xbox, because that's what's available to them. Once that package opened up and they saw those, the wheels and the circuit kits and everything, head explode. They never touched that Xbox again, from what I know. I talk to them on a weekly basis, and so they have now a new vested interest. And so instead of running the streets, man, this is what they're doing now. Especially because the pandemic shut down a lot of schools because they couldn't go, and so this is the next best thing for them. And so I hear both sides of it. I just feel like I feel like if they're not old enough to vote, man, I think they're salvageable at this point. You know, I think once you get past adulthood, I think that, you know, it becomes questionable. But I think that what I'm seeing on screen, I can never tell them no. And I think that the ones who have not been introduced to it, I think we should facilitate that on our end as an adult. That's my closing thoughts on this. You know, anybody else can jump in. Go ahead.
No, I don't have nothing more to say on the matter. You know, again, I'm always, you know, I am for mentoring, but I stand by what I said earlier, which is that professionals, especially folks in some of these more elite professions, time is limited. You know, you don't have the ability to go and start, you know, you don't have the ability to be a mentor for whatever, for X amount of people. So you have to be very discerning about who do you pick as a mentee. And so again, you know, I think there's still a bit of an over reliance on what mentorship is and what it's supposed to do, what it's supposed to facilitate, and not enough focus on understanding, well, what's really going on here. So I'll just leave it at that.
Anyone else? Go.
No, I think I said, you know, as far as, you know, you have mentorship, you have teaching. That it's a mix of things that kind of go into really helping to facilitate a lot of this. So there's a mix. There's a mix. We certainly see in education. We've seen it in sports. We've seen it in a lot of different areas. So we kind of know how this works. We know how to teach these kids. We know how to do a lot of this. The question about it is expanding and growing on some of these programs that we know that work. There's resistance to it because, quite frankly, and I'm just going to speak, you know, very, 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 very harsh about it. There are majority communities out here that don't want to see you succeed. They're worried about your success because they're worried about maintaining their power. So they're worried about you succeeding and building this. So that's what you have to really start thinking about as well. That's a slightly different conversation, but I'll just put it out there because we're dealing with that as well. That's a big piece. But anyway, that's all I have to say.
Ernest, you have anything you want to add? Closing thoughts.
Just shout out to Jackson and shout out to the Mississippi Coding Academy.
Indeed. Complex, you have anything you want to add in terms of closing thoughts? I think Complex has stepped away, but thank you to everyone who have participated in this, and thank you to everyone in the chat, and make sure you hit the like button as you exit out, and hit that notification bell so you get all the updates